Hey, by the way, we're watching the WWE Network, and you've shielded it a few times today, and I'm sure they thank you for that. But
no, they don't.
Okay, they probably
should, but they don't.
You also said that you don't keep up with the current product because you find it just sort of formulaic. I'm sure you saw the controversy this past week in Saudi Arabia. A lot of people expected the Fiend to beat Goldberg, and it didn't go that way. Goldberg essentially squashed the Fiend. I think like 3 spears and a jackhammer later, we were done, and we have a new champion. What'd you think of Goldberg going over the Fiend and becoming the champ right here in WrestleMania season?
Yeah, let me clarify that statement you made, or I made, that you repeated. When I say I don't keep up with the product, I mean that I can't sit and watch an entire Raw, or I can't sit and watch, an entire SmackDown. I do keep up with the product, but I do it I do it a la carte. If I know something's going to happen that I happen to be interested in, or, anything Randy Orton, for example, if I know Randy's going to be involved in some kind of an important match or angle or a setup or an end to an angle, I'm going to tune in because I love watching Randy Orton work, there's certain, I love Dolph Ziggler. I love watching his work. I like Sheamus. There's certain characters that I watch that I, kind of wished I would have had a chance to work with, and I was excited about working with when I was in WWE most recently, that I didn't get a chance to. So I keep up with it. I just don't watch it as religiously or as intensely as I used to. But I did hear about that yesterday. I didn't watch the pay-per-view. I was busy yesterday, but I did read about it. I followed up and did some research, and I'm surprised, honestly, for a couple of reasons. At least when I was in WWE, I don't know what the situation is now, but his merchandise, they couldn't produce it fast enough. I mean, it appeared to me, at least, that Fiend was going to be one of those characters that could be an Undertaker-esque type character over the long term. Mrs. Mead just brought me some more coffee, just what our audience needed. Eric Bischoff wired up on more caffeine. But given the trajectory of the Fiend character, I was really surprised, and nothing against Bill, but he's not a full-timer. He's a part-timer, and Bill pretty much shit the bed last time he was in Saudi Arabia. So I found that shocking, particularly, the way they did it as quickly as they did it. And a lot of that might have had to do with the fact that Bill's not really the right guy to go out there and have, a 20-minute match with a guy like, with the Fiend. I don't know. It's interesting, though.
Well, I'm excited too, but before we get into it, I did that different style entrance for you today because when Kevin Nash was asked on Twitter this past week, do you think Eric Bischoff should have went in with the rest of you guys for the NWO? Kevin corrected the person asking the question and said, no, I think Eric should go in on his own. And I thought, man, finally, one of the boys standing up for you. And one of the guys who was really at the center of this NWO controversy through no fault of his own. What say you? What'd your Twitter look like this week when you got a lot of support from all over the world that, hey, Eric should go in on his own?
It's always flattering. It always makes you feel good when, people recognize you for your work and are supportive. It's nice to get that every once in a while compared to the rest of the stuff that comes through my feed. It made me feel good. Look, Kevin's a great guy. We've got a long and colorful history together. He speaks his mind. He will always tell you how he feels.
Let's get to it. Josh Kuhn has some interesting questions. He's actually got a few here, 2 that are funny. One that's funny and one that I'm kind of curious about. I don't know how much of it you've seen. What does Arn think of the Firefly Funhouse and the Fiend Bray Wyatt?
Anything that can get Bray Wyatt a fresh start after the Raw deal he's gotten over the years, I'm all for. Whoever came up with the mask is pretty scary looking. I think Bray can pull the character off. Bray Wyatt, just as Bray Wyatt in the beginning with those promos that he used to do.
Outstanding.
The Cape Fear-esque character was pretty scary to me. How about you?
I loved it. I thought it was revolutionary, very well done, had really high hopes for it. It looked like he was going to be positioned as a top guy for a long time. And then he just fucking never won. So he wasn't.
Well, and that's the only answer. That's the only negative. When you ask what went wrong, wasn't that he didn't perform. It wasn't that the Wyatts with him were not tremendous. Luke and Big Red were awesome. You know, they had some of the greatest 6-man tags with the Shield I've ever seen. They were awesome. So he did everything right, except you got to win the big one. And if you continually lose the big one, people look at you as being a loser. But more importantly, they're smart enough to know, our audience, if the company doesn't have anything planned for you and you're not going to be pushed as a star, they're not going to look at you as a star. And if the company doesn't make you big, the audience won't make you big.
And some of it too was just, I don't know. I felt like a reliant on quote unquote gimmicks and special effects and things like that. Like that WrestleMania match, you know, his first WrestleMania match with that character is against John Cena. And you think, oh shit, man, that's high cotton to be in. Fast forward, he's got a world title WrestleMania match with Randy Orton again. Man, that's a big time spot, but they're going to project bugs on the canvas instead. Like it takes away from, I don't know. It felt like a reliance on gimmicks. And that being said, I mean, he's brushed up against The Rock at WrestleMania. I mean, there's been plenty of opportunity, and for whatever reason, they just wouldn't pull the trigger. And I'm glad that he's got another crack at it now.
Well, yeah. And if you back up, and, you know, my memory banks are, you know, a little bit dusty because I've been dropped on my melon too many times. But if you back up, weren't Bray and Randy partners prior to that match with the bugs on the mat and all that?
Yeah. I think that's also where they like burned down a house in like rural Missouri or something.
Yeah, but prior to that, they were partners, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the time frame?
I think
and then
right.
they busted them up, and then they had their match, right?
Right.
They were over, and they were getting over strong as a team. I was there for it. It was tremendous. Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt made a great team. And it was going to be one of those things that we talk about on this show all the time. When something gets hotter than it was expected to get, and it starts to boil and percolate, but without any help from the office, a lot of times it just gets shut down because it gives those talents too much stroke, too much power. And this was one of those situations because I was there and I saw it. And I had a lot of their matches, you know, at TV. Those guys should have still been partners when that match went down at WrestleMania. So again, it's one of those history things that things get cut off way short. And once you've shot the angle and you've had the match now, you can't go back to it and have the same results down the road. You know, you get one crack at building these scenarios. And if they haven't ran their course, it is what it is.
The other thing worth mentioning too, since we're spending a lot of time on Bray Wyatt, that whole Daniel Bryan recruitment thing they did like 5 or 6 years ago, where he's like in the ring dressed as one of the camera crew or whatever with the old coveralls, dude, just outstanding stuff. And then, it is what it is. Mike Cohen writes in, who was your favorite producer backstage to work with, planning out matches, etc. during your long tenure in WWE backstage? Was there a favorite television producer?
Well, we all had individual matches. You never had two producers on a match. There was occasionally, like if it was a big battle royal or something that was going to involve a ton of moving parts, you would get to work with another producer. Sometimes there would be two. Jamie Noble is very, very underrated and underappreciated with that company. He's a smart kid. He's very talented, very dependable, very creative. Dean Malenko was great, you know, ton of knowledge. Fit Finley, same thing. Mike Rotundo, very solid. You know, all producers, every one of them with their backgrounds and their knowledge and working knowledge of the business. Enjoyed working with all those guys.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.